Hello and welcome to the Ignite Your Leadership Prowess podcast. As usual, I'm your host, Muted Adebowale. And today on the podcast, I've got a wonderful, really amazing guest. And she's going to be talking everything luxury. So get yourself ready, put on your boots. We're going on the luxury island today. I've got Elizabeth Solaru with me, and she's a Luxpreneur. I really don't want to say too much about Elizabeth because I don't want to spoil the coating. So I'm going to give you to you, Elizabeth. Please tell us who you are, the wonderful things you've been doing in the luxury world, and everything else.
Thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I'm very excited to be here, and thank you for that great introduction. I'm Elizabeth and I'm a luxury business consultant. So what I do is I help businesses to either level up or if there are businesses already in the luxury sector, I help them to get the very high-end clients that they want to get. So how did I get to this point? I started my career as a scientist. I was a microbiologist. I was working for the NHS. I did that for several years. Then I went ahead, I did an MBA because I wanted to run my own business. And from an MBA, I was able to get a headhunting job where I recruited lots of chief executives, lots of finance directors and C-suite executives. I did that also for a number of years. And then 2008, the recession hit and many of us were let go from the city. So I decided, if not now, when? And I decided to set up my own business, and it was a cake business. And I ended up making cakes for royalty, for ultra high net worth individuals. In fact, some of my cakes ended up on the front pages of national newspapers, international publications. I appeared on TV shows. So it was a lovely, lovely whirlwind. But what I learned was how to negotiate the luxury world. So how to sell essentially to the very high net worth, very affluent clients. So I learned that, and I then realized we had COVID hit, and that was a bit of a reset for a lot of people. So some of my clients were not coming into the UK anymore, and I wasn't able to travel out because I'm usually flown all over the world to deliver these cakes. So I started getting approached by a number of organizations wanting me to speak on entrepreneurship. So I started doing that, and then I quickly realized that the knowledge about the luxury sector wasn't really out there in ways that were easy for people to understand, or even practical ways, because many books on luxury were written by professors of luxury or luxury experts, but many of them had never run their own company. So that has brought me to this point. So I started talking about luxury, and I had these ideas and concepts, and a lot of people were like, oh my God, this is amazing. So what I decided to do was put everything together, and that's why I've written my book, The Luxpreneur, and that brings me to this point.
Lovely. That's really fantastic. But I would like to ask you, why luxury? Why the luxury market?
That's a great question, actually, because even I had to think about it, and I tell people I literally fell into luxury. When I started my cake business, I really did not say, oh my God, I'm only going to sell to the high net worth. It was something completely accidental. And the first inkling I had was when my coach at the time, because I was still working as a headhunter and the cake business was a side hustle. So I showed images to my coach and she went, oh my God, you have a high-end product. I'd never heard of high-end product till that time. So for me, it just felt very natural. But it was more about the people, because a lot of the candidates that sat in front of me that I was interviewing, I noticed that the ones who held themselves as luxury products, they did better than candidates who came in being just totally, for lack of a better word, ordinary. Because once you get to C-suite, once you get to director level, once you get to CEO level, there's a level of holding yourself a certain way of being that we expect from you as a headhunter or as a prospective employer. And I noticed that, and what I didn't realize at the time was that I was taking mental notes. And because I interviewed people like that for a living, I find it really easy to talk to them. So if you put me in a situation where you've got billionaires in the room, I will not be fazed. I will not talk to them about their billions because I don't have any myself, but I will talk to them about other things. So I quickly found my own way of networking because as a headhunter, one of the companies I worked for, they made you do 100 calls a week. So 100 cold calls in order to be able to get maybe 5 or 10 meetings with CEOs. And that means you had to get past about 3 PAs. You've got to figure out which of the PAs is the diary, is in charge of the diary. So you got to get in front of her, pitch to her before you're able to get in front of her boss. So for me, being able to talk to anybody, gatekeeper, CEO, whatever, it didn't really faze me because I know it sounds weird. I had to eat because if I didn't pitch or if I didn't have my meetings or I didn't meet any deadlines, I didn't eat. So that was why I kind of fell into luxury.
Okay, that's lovely. So what are the key differences in building a luxury brand versus a non-luxury brand?
Again, another great question. Luxury brands are, and people say, oh, it's different. And that was another thing I articulated in the book. And in my view, and this is just my view, luxury brands are built on 5 main pillars. And one of the pillars is storytelling, is perception. So for example, if you go into your local Tesco's and you go and buy, I don't know, let's say peanut butter, 3-4 quid a jar or something like that. You go in, you get your product, you leave. For you, you look at the perceived value. So the perceived value is what you paid for it and what you're getting out of it. So if you subtract what you think your perception versus the cost, that's the value roughly. The only time you might get upset about that peanut butter is maybe you open the lid and it's not what you expect or it's foul or something like that. So that is like an ordinary product. So let's take the same product, peanut butter, and you go to Harrods and you buy a jar. There's expectation around the actual value. So whatever the peanut butter is in the jar, you have expectation around the packaging, around the presentation, around the story behind it. Because again, remember, I said one of the pillars is storytelling. So you want to know that the peanuts were grown by, I don't know, angels, and they were harvested specially early in the morning before the sun came out, and the people, even the shelling of the peanuts were done in a special way to conserve. So do you see what I'm doing there? I'm building a story. So you're buying into that brand, you're buying into the story, you're buying into the packaging, you're buying into the fact that this is probably the only peanuts grown from a particular region in the particular world. So that is what differentiates the luxury brand from the normal brand. And again, I've missed out a lot. There's a lot more. There are 4 or 5 other pillars that I talk about in my book.
No, I don't want you to spill everything because I'd like people, when the book's, published at least, I'd like people to go in there. So that one is a really great one. Storytelling is one of the things that differentiates luxury and non-luxury brands. Lovely. But I'd like to ask you, I was going to ask you about how important storytelling is, but how did you craft your own brand story?
Excellent. That's another fabulous question. So my brand story, for a few years, I didn't know what it was because I was trying to go for the middle market because I thought the middle market was safe and you get quite a few clients in that market. Because if you go for the top to the top, you get less clients, although they pay more. So for about the first 5 years of my business, I was really trying to go to the middle market. However, I think about year 1, year 2 of my cake business, I picked up the yellow pages, trying to do the same thing that I normally do, call 100 clients. So I said, okay, pick up the yellow pages. I'm going to call all the wedding planners, all the event planners. And today, you know, the Nigerian today's today, we must get this done. So I was calling. And I think day 3 or something like that, I called this particular number. And at the end of the phone was a very young girl. And she said, do you make cupcakes? And I said, of course we make cupcakes. And I said to her, and this is what, again, I learned to do as a headhunter. I said, I'm going to be in your area in the next 3 days. Do you mind if I bring you some samples? Because I looked at the address. It was a West London address. And I thought, you know, nice area, might as well. So 3 days, and she said, sure. So 3 days later, I took the cupcakes and I said, delivery from Elizabeth. I acted as if I wasn't Elizabeth, dropped the cakes and I left. Before I got home, I got another phone call from the lady saying, can you please come back? Because Lady Elizabeth would like to meet you. And I said, sure, I'd like to come back. So I went back and I'm thinking, who is Lady Elizabeth? She happened to be the late Queen Elizabeth's first cousin. And she was, you know, as in literally when they see each other, they hug. Used to call the late Queen by her name, in private, etc. So they were very, very close. So I went back to see her and she said, works fantastic. They taste amazing. They look incredible. And she gave me my first order on the spot.
Wow.
So that was, I mean, as you can imagine, I was on a high, but I did a couple of mistakes. Number one, I undercharged. I didn't charge for delivery. I was way too excited to get the order. First time in my life I ever saw a private bank check. I was too poor. I had to cash it. I wish I'd kept it, but I was way too poor to keep it. So, but then it was what happened after that that really started to help me build my brand story. So after the event, she then writes me, it was a handwritten note, and she wrote me saying, amazing, amazing cakes. You were one of 3 cake makers, but your cakes tasted the best. You can use this testimonial that I've given you in all your marketing.
Oh, bless.
Exactly. So, and I was like, wow. Now, she did not have to do that. She didn't at all have to do that. And why do I mention this story? This is part of my brand DNA, my brand story, because I tell this story everywhere I go. I told it in the book. I tell it everywhere I go, because who would have thought that a random phone call would lead to that? Now, when you think of, so that's my story. But when you think of a famous brand like Chanel No. 5, for example, the perfume that everybody knows, even if you hate the perfume, you know the perfume. What's the story? Some people say Coco Chanel named Chanel No. 5 after the fact that it was a 5th bottle that she smelt because she asked a nose to develop perfume for her. And he presented her with a number of bottles, and the 5th bottle was the one she liked. I think that's an amazing story. Again, so your brand story doesn't have to be anything uber, ultra incredible, but what it needs to do is to be told in a really compelling and magical way. So whatever you went, because people think, and also people sometimes like to equate, oh my God, I went through a hard time, my suffering, and they try to put that in their brand. That sometimes work, but for the most part, look for something compelling as part of that story and infuse that into your brand. So for example, the fact that I went through a hard time, I was so determined for other people not to go through it. Through my products that I sell, I might donate a certain percentage to charity. that is infusing your brand with something positive at the end. So that is, that would be my suggestion around that. But a compelling brand story with a good product with incredible quality can go a long way.
Lovely. That's fantastic. Thank you so much for that. So if somebody was sitting somewhere listening to this and they would like to start their own luxury brand, what's the first step you would advise them to take?
That is another great question. People sometimes think it starts with the product. And many of us start with the product. I started with the product. But if I were to do it again, I would say start with a client. Because even people I coach and mentor, I say to them, find your client first. When you find your client, then find out the problem or build your product around that particular type of client. Because people think, okay, I want to start a luxury brand. I want people to pay lots of money for it, but they don't map out the different types of luxury clients. Because many people think, okay, luxury clients, somebody with money. No, I mapped out 8 different types in my book. And I also made suggestion of how to sell to them and where you can even find them if you look in the right places. So I would say you want to start a brand, start with the client, then look at your product, because I've done that in the book. Then look at the type of luxury brand you want to be. There are 5 different types of luxury brands, from the ultra prestige right down to what I call masstige, which is mass product, but with a little bit of prestige. So you need to decide which camp do I fall into. So if you fall into a particular camp, then your clients are likely to be XYZ, then you can do a proper mapping. And that mapping process is crucial. So to give you an example, King Charles, our current king, and Ozzy Osbourne, they were born on the same day, same year, so they're the same age, they're both white male, and they both have money, but they are different luxury client types. And when I tell people this, they're like, because it gives them, food for thought. So not just demographics, but psychographics and a couple of other things.
Okay, fantastic. So how do you talked about, building a little bit of prestige to what you're doing? So how do you create a sense of prestige with or plus the desirability of, for people to desire want your product? How do you create that sense of adding prestige and the desire for it together in the product you've created?
This is great. This question actually cuts to the very heart of luxury, because the key word, desirability and prestige, because that is, as human beings, some of us, well, I'd say even a lot of us have that ingrained into us. We want something that would make us look amazing to other people. We want something that would that satisfies that desire of being seen to be important and that validation, etc. So again, it goes back to your luxury client type that you are as a person. However, I would say if you are creating a luxury brand, the first thing you must do is not make your product too available. So to give an example, but you might say, Elizabeth, okay, I always use myself as an example. I sell cakes, which is eggs, butter, sugar, flour, milk. That's what it is on a basic level. However, what I sometimes do, there are certain flavors I only sell to certain people. So there are certain flavors that I get that will not, I make it like a limited edition. I'd only give it to certain clients to try. So again, desirability, exclusivity, rarity. Then another thing that you mustn't do, you mustn't give discounts willy-nilly. And I've seen people do that. If you order before blah, 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 you get 10% off, you get 30% off or whatever. This is my principle. You either give it away for free completely or you hold your price. What you can do though is you can give discounts, but in a different way. So you can do what American Express does. And I always use examples that are easy, that people can relate to. So American Express, they will not say, oh, we're going to give you a discount on your whatever it is. But what they will do is they will do collaborations with airlines, with certain luxury brands. You can get air miles. There's a lot that they do. There are certain clubs that you can join where you can then get those products either for free or you have a special code. So there are things that they do for their members. So it's about creating, and again, being able to say, I'm a Black Card member, I'm a Centurion, or whatever it is, because, I don't know whatever they go for, but whatever it is, people being able to say that, people being able to, if you're being fast-tracked for certain social events, for example, you're able to go to Ascot, that is a kind of thing that you need to do. So as a very small business, you might say, oh, but I'm not American Express, but you can do collaborations. You can find another growing luxury brand and you can do amazing collaborations together. You can do takeovers together. And this is not going to cost you an arm and a leg. So you need to look at what luxury brands do, which is very small events, very close club, very exclusive, and use that as a model for you trying to build and find the right clientele.
Lovely. That is very, very insightful, and it's got loads of information there for you if you are looking to start your luxury brand. And you talked about exclusivity. I'd like to ask, what role does exclusivity, when you have products that are quite exclusive, maybe not rare, but like maybe limited edition, that sort of thing, what role does that play in maintaining your brand's luxury status? And how do you then balance that with accessibility?
Fantastic. So again, this is a problem that many luxury brands have been grappling with. But if you think about it, one key thing that it guarantees to some extent exclusivity is a price. So that is why luxury products are priced way high, sky high. So that excludes and gets rid of a number of people. And then you then have the problem of accessibility. So I would say, if you look at what the big brands do, the big name brands, so if you think of any brand off the top of your head, they have what I call, and this is again me literally simplifying and summarizing, they have three price points, right? So let me explain the price points. So, and it's like a cycle thing. So the first price point is, if I save up for maybe a month or a week, I can afford to buy a lipstick, perfume, or some of the beauty products from a certain brand, for example. So I mentioned a brand earlier, my favorite perfume, number 5. I'm like, okay, let me say for a month, I'll be able to buy perfume. Then you go to the next level up in terms of pricing, in terms of exclusivity. Those are the handbags, the shoes, your leather goods, your personal goods, etc. Then you go next level up, which is a massive jump, and that's couture. So couture, minimum 100 grand or thereabouts. For that one, maybe I'll have to sell a kidney or something, but so again, but the thing is, the brands then use the spectacle of couture. So annually, I think twice a year or thereabouts, you've got the London Fashion Show, Milan Fashion Show, Paris Fashion Show, Couture Week. They then use couture. They create like a theater, a catwalk. Selected people are invited, but this catwalk is blasted to the general public. So you get to have a look, but you don't just get to be in the room. So that they use that as to advertise almost the perfumes and the lipsticks, which pay for the couture, if that makes sense. So you have accessibility as well as exclusivity hand in hand in the same brand, and it's balanced really, really well. So that is how I explain the dichotomy.
Well, I guess that's a lot of strategy put it into how the processes of marketing and sales and public relations, community, so I think that's a lot of, the marketing strategies and all of those things quite well crafted, well thought out. Yeah. And that's why they can do the blends the way you've explained it, using different practices, let's say. Okay, so how important, when we talk about luxury brand, how important is craftsmanship, in how you maintain the standards of the product or across the product line?
Craftsmanship is hands down, in my view, because I'm an artisan myself. So craftsmanship to me is number one. It's left to me. I would say it's the in all and end all, but it's not. But it's not. But because I'm an artisan, I'm on the side of craftsmanship. When it comes to craftsmanship, it's about, again, you can't, well, in my eyes anyway, you can't ever get anything perfect. So you've got to keep improving and improving and improving. However, for certain goods, you need to get to a point where you say, okay, we've got it as best, this is as perfect as it can be, because underlying everything is a business. Because those are cost prices, because the more you have human labor, human hands, the more the costs go up. And then if you think about it, when it comes to craftsmanship, overlooking the craftsmanship is the creativity. So that's why with many luxury brands, if you have an incredible creative director and an incredible CEO, so CEO that decides the strategy, the money, the marketing, blah, 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 as well as an incredible creative director, you have unprecedented success. So we take Karl Lagerfeld and Chanel. His time in Chanel was like some of the best days of Chanel, apart from when the founder herself was designing in the early days. So it's about a balance of the two. So craftsmanship, absolutely key, absolutely important. And the processes need to be looked at over and over again to make sure that you're not harming the environment, to make sure that you're compliant. Because recently we had a situation in Italy where a certain well-known handbag company, their factories were raided and they were literally paying $57 a bag that they were selling for thousands and thousands of dollars. So things like that will not work in this sustainable economy, in this ethical times that we're entering, and especially with social media. So craftsmanship, it's all about you training your people, you developing, again, my time in the lab, you have something called standard operating procedures, so that everything you craft, there is consistency, because underlying craftsmanship, so if creativity is on top, you have your craftsmanship, then underpinning everything is consistency and that quality. So that for me is a role of craftsmanship in luxury.
Oh, fantastic, fantastic. It was a good thing you talked about social media, because I was just going to ask you, with the rise of social media and influencers, how has that changed things for the luxury brand?
It's changed things quite a lot, actually. I mean, the influencers have always been around luxury, but they were not called influencers, if that made sense. So, for example, when you have people like Jackie Kennedy who wore a Chanel suit, or Princess Margaret in the old days who wore Dior. So they were the influencers of their time. But now I think what social media has done is it's given everybody a platform. So we all have the potential to be content creators, to be media centers, and also be influencers. So it's given, I mean, even this podcast right now, this would have been unthinkable 20 years ago that you would have your own broadcast channel. So, but what's actually happened is visible influencers, so influencers with visibility, high visibility influencers, as I call them, with millions and millions of followers, they can influence certain things about a luxury brand. So they can influence things like perception, they can influence certain sales, certain products, etc. So what we're finding is that in luxury, some luxury brands are partnering with influencers. Some are getting really amazing results and some are not. So a particular brand, Laura Piana, they're doing they partnered with a certain influencer on TikTok, and they did extremely well, exceedingly well, because the partnership was holistic. It wasn't just, okay, we've designed something, let's stamp your name on it. It was a really well thought out campaign that carried through. So in my view, if you're, as a luxury brand, if you're going to partner with an influencer, both of you need to sit down and really, really talk about, okay, how can it benefit me as a brand? How can it benefit them? And what can we, so it's got to be proper collaborative. It can't just be, oh, I designed some socks. Would you like to? No, it can't be that anymore. It's got to be authentic, because a lot of followers, they can smell, they can smell fake, they can smell whatever a mile away. But if it's authentic and there's a very strong storytelling behind it, then a lot of followers will get behind it.
Oh, great. It's just about making sure that the brand collaboration and the partnership is genuine. It's not just out there just to make money. It's actually genuine and all well thought out. Wonderful. So how would you say to somebody who wants to start their luxury brand to leverage the power of the social media, the digital marketing, and whilst doing that, to still maintain the exclusivity, the high-end, status of the luxury brand?
I would say that whatever you do, you've got to present things in a certain way. You've got to present things well. The first thing I would say is think about brands that you like and you admire, or that are personal to you. Once you've decided what kind of brand you want to be, look at those brands, look at how they're reaching out, how they're doing things. So for example, if you're a, say cake maker, and you're presenting your cakes and I'm seeing all the crap behind you in the kitchen, that doesn't really gel. If you're thinking of a couture house, for example, you see all the women wearing nice little white coats. Although the sewing room has lots of material in it, it's nicely curated in the background. It's not tardy. It's messy, but it's a controlled mess, if that makes sense. So you need to be very careful of what you're putting out there. So look for brands that are doing a great job and see what they're doing, number one. Then number two, find your own authentic voice, your own storytelling in whatever you do, and make sure your story is consistent. So make sure, okay, these are our values, this is what we stand for, and make sure it's consistent and do things consistently. And then number three, and I know a brand that did this, find somebody in the public eye and send them your products. If you're a product based business, you can find somebody in the public eye, find out who their publicist is, and you can send your products. And I know someone who did that genuinely. They literally sat down and they said, okay, what kind of luxury client do we want to serve? And they wrote, and then they decided, okay, we will send our products to the Duchess of Sussex, to Meghan, and she wore, it wasn't a paid collaboration or anything, she wore one of them, and literally, once she wore that pair of jeans, the company had to employ 46 more people. to,
Wow,
yeah,
that's
they had to employ 46 more people to sell. So my point is, these influencer collaborations, they can work. They can result in sales. However, you need to be prepared for the impact of, if you then hit the jackpot, do you have the supply chain, the capacity to fulfill orders? Again, when the Duchess of Sussex, when she wore the Ashoke skirt from a Nigerian designer, her website crashed. The
gracious.
website, yeah, the website crashed. So she then had to put a message saying, guys, website crashed. This is my WhatsApp number. Send us your number and we'll put you on the waiting list. So you need to be prepared for when things go viral. So social media is amazing. It's great, but you need to think, okay, do I have the capacity for when things go viral for me?
Okay, I guess that is part of the journey, that's part of the process. However, it's just good to look forward sometimes when we're planning and say, okay, what could happen, when the success come, or what could happen when we grow, and it's part of the business plan. How do we want to grow? What could happen? What do we put in place? That sort of thing. Well, which is beautiful the way you've talked about it. I'm sure some people's minds and hearts and eyes are opening up. You talking about that and giving stories and experiences of people and of yourself, of how things changed for you very quickly, having influences or having prestigious, famous, or wealthy people, be your business customer. Thank you so much for so much insight that you've been sharing on this podcast today. Now let's go back to your book. What's the title of your book?
My book is called The Luxpreneur: How to Start and Build a Successful Luxury Brand.
Great, fantastic. And when are you looking to get this, to the public?
It's going to be out on the 16th of September and you'll be on Amazon. So if you just look for Elizabeth Solaru, The Luxpreneur on Amazon and get yourself a copy. And what I love about the book as well is that this is written from the perspective of somebody like me. So it wasn't as if my brand was, I had lots of money in the bank or it was funded or nothing like that at all. I was, when I wrote the book, because sometimes, you write a book and you think, for me, it wasn't about, I want to say, it's about, I have something to say. It was more, I wanted to say something that resonated with people and something that showed people a roadmap. So it's very dear to my heart. The book I wish I'd written when I started my journey nearly 20 years ago.
Oh, okay, lovely, fantastic, and I'm sure that's going to be full of insights and your experiences, the journey, the successes, the failure on the way. So yes, I'm excited as well to get, my hands on your book. Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for coming on the show. If there is one word you could say to somebody pondering on starting their luxury, I know you said a lot, but if there is one word you could say to somebody looking to start their own luxury brand, having their high-end customers and all of that, what would that word be?
Do it. Don't hesitate. Because the longer you think about it, analysis paralysis, buy the Luxpreneur. It's literally a roadmap, and just do it. Just start. And don't worry about, oh my God, what if it fails? So what? You do it again and again and again until it succeeds. Just do it.
That's it. Just do it. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. It's been a really great honor having you on the podcast today. And I'm really, really excited about the conversation we had today. So this is where we're going to be putting an end to the Ignite Your Leadership Prowess podcast. Today, I'm Muted Adebowale. And until I see you again, you just keep being the best of who you are. you.